Welcome back to another podcast. We're second podcast in 7 days.
True. This
Quick
is
turnaround.
I was going to say, this is actually the quickest turnaround surely we've ever had.
Yeah, it's efficient. We're running an efficient ship at the moment.
Yeah, straight after that 8-week hiatus we had.
Don't worry about it.
It all evens out in the end.
Yeah. No, we're back, and we had a spare Saturday.
Yeah.
I had just come off a horrendous night. I'm very under the weather.
Yes. There was mild pukage.
Oh no. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I just.
Nah, you had a few cordials last night.
Yeah,
That's
a
good.
lot.
I stayed in last night. I'm usually the one that wants to go out and get lit every weekend.
And I say no.
I finally hit a point, I think, where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to take a few weekends to myself, save a bit of money, and I've been working hard at the gym lately, and so
Want those gains?
yeah, it's tough when you work so hard during the week for the gym and your diet's on point, and then Saturday you blow out. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just felt like I needed a couple of weekends where I didn't do that. So yeah.
So what are you doing tonight?
I got no plans tonight. So we might see you at Fremantle.
If Metro's free are watching us, and the chances are they're not.
If
you are, you'll see this man tonight.
Do you have any interest in going out tonight?
No.
I was going to say, holy shit.
Did you not see me when I woke up this morning? Like, how was that even a question?
That's why I was baffled. I thought you were like, what are you doing tonight?
Because you want to go out tonight?
No, I mean, I can always be twisted into it. But... okay, fine. Nah, I'm going through a time in my life where I'm enjoying going out again.
Yeah.
Because, to contrast, like, I've been in a relationship for 4 years, as I mention every fucking episode. But it is, that is actually, it's relevant because I didn't really go out and get with the boys at all, really. Like, maybe like a handful of times in 4 years. So I'm enjoying going out, and also, like, I've got more money than I ever have before.
Nice.
Being, in my late 20s now. So yeah, no, it's good fun going out and getting lit.
We're enjoying it. We're enjoying the social aspect of life.
I do also enjoy...
Sue me.
I do also enjoy, though, waking up feeling crisp on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It's good to have both, I think. Enjoy the Saturday nights, but also have weekends where you do shit and yeah. No,
I'm surprised because last night was like the first Friday that I came back and didn't wake you up, and I was not quiet.
Impressed.
I was not quiet. So I'm impressed with you.
I was actually already awake. I heard you come in, but I was like,
did you hear my slight groaning in my bed? I was at one point, I remember I fell asleep for like an hour, and then I woke up and my head was hurting. I remember I was like in my bed rolling side on side going, Jesse. And I'm surprised you never woke up.
No,
because I was like walking around my room just being like, oh no, oh.
I was like, I literally like turned off the lights and I was just listening to a podcast. Like, this is my last thing to do before I go to sleep. And heard the door open. I heard bang, and then here straight after that, bang, and I just presumed that's you throwing your shoes across the apartment. That's all I can assume it was.
I don't know what it is. I can't give you an answer. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Normally you do well. That was that time you came home at like 3 a.m. Literally like 3 a.m. Turned the TV on, and then you walked into my room like, Jesse, I'm home. And I think I was sick at the time, so I was like hating life, waking up. And then you brought a traffic cone into my house, which is literally still on our balcony.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah.
One of my funniest memories that I think back to every now and then is when I come home after one Friday. For some reason, Friday's a big night at work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because you do you're in the city, so you go and have drinks after work.
It's a thing. So trying to avoid those Friday sessions is harder than actually, like, you just get talked into going out Friday.
100%.
So I come home one Friday, probably close to like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm pretty sure you had work at like 6 the next day.
I remember this.
And I was cooking fucking beef patties. And like I just finished cooking them, and I was just eating beef patties on the ground watching Netflix.
Yeah.
And at no point in this whole event where I've come home in this time frame, at no point did I ever consider that I was not alone. I just thought I was alone the entire time. I thought there was no way that anyone was around.
Yeah.
And then you just opened your door, and I remember just looking at you being like, what the fuck?
Who that?
And you being like, hey, I got work in 3 hours. Can you keep it down? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 1 hour because I had to get up at 5 for that particular shift.
Right.
It was like 3:50 a.m. and I just woke up. I was like,
and you ruined my beef patties.
Yeah, and I opened the door and you just went. It never occurred to you that someone might be there.
Not once. Oh, not good. That's not good.
So yeah, that was a fun shift.
Woke up in the house smelled like beef.
Stinking beef. Oh, yeah. Nah, but good times.
Yeah.
Not so much, but yeah.
This has been loose.
Yeah.
The start of this podcast has not been structured at all.
Yeah, true. But they never are.
No.
I find. But I did actually have a topic in mind
You did.
for today.
You messaged me yesterday and you had a topic in mind.
Yeah, butt plugs. Not really. There's only so much you can say about butt plugs. Believe me. So the interesting
That
topic,
True Footy episode did not do well.
absolute flop. Absolute flop. Manscaped loved it though.
Keep it trimmed.
Yeah, advertising their new range. Eventually we've got to get to the topic of the podcast.
All right,
Eventually.
let's stop. Go.
I was just thinking, we touched on it in the last episode. We were talking about the pursuit of happiness, for lack of a better phrase. The film review that we're about to do.
It is a movie, isn't it?
Yeah, Will Smith and Jaden Smith. I think he has his son in it.
True that. Nice.
Yeah, that's really not what we want to talk about though. It was, we talked about the balance between being satisfied, self-satisfaction, and also the ability to be happy. So we were, for instance, talking about how we were both like this, but we were talking about you and how like you're never satisfied with what you have, and that really drives you to work hard and be the best you can be. But the balance between that and being a happy person, because some would say that they're kind of like conflicting, you know what I mean? Like if you're not happy with where you are, how can you be happy with your life? But you feel like you're a happy person?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
And that's the podcast. No, yeah, I definitely feel like I'm happy, but I have an inability to feel satisfied with where I am. And right now it's good because we're young and we're out and being like hungry and motivated is like the name of the game at the stage that we're at. But I feel that when I get older, it'll be a problem. I don't think this will go away, and I think I'll get to like later years of my life. Yeah. Even like middle, like if I get to like 40, and I think I'll still feel this way, and I think that's where I may have issues with it.
I think it's important to also define happiness and well, maybe not define it, but like, what do you think happiness means to you? Like, it's a really hard question to answer.
I have like a direct correlation between happiness and security.
Interesting.
If I feel secure, physically, mentally, then I feel like that's where my happiness comes from.
Yeah, that's good. I guess we can break it down into elements, like security for sure. I think contentment is part of it as well. A big part of it, actually. I think there's a huge relationship between those two things, where like being content, not necessarily thinking you deserve more than you have. And it's a hard one because it's nuanced, right? Like if you can't also not think you deserve more than you have and then be driven. Do you know what I mean? But it's also like, I think relationships and women is a big part of it that probably doesn't really get talked about as being a huge part of happiness as it is. I think like, for instance, I reckon you'd find there'd be a big proportion of people who end up being like pedophiles and serial killers and like weirdos in society that also can't get women. You know what I mean? I actually think there's quite a relationship there because I think it's kind of like, well, I mean, it's like a natural instinct for people to want to get laid. Do you know what I mean? So like, I wouldn't be surprised if I think people who like don't get women, for instance, or that can't get men end up very angry people. Yeah. And I think those people end up being the ones who sort of get angry at society, think they deserve more, and end up being real weirdos. Do you know what I mean? Like the incel type of person.
That's weird. I do get what you're saying. And it's hard with statements like that because obviously there's going to be like exceptions to the rule and things that go against what you said. Like immediately what jumps to mind is that Ted Brumby.
100%, yeah.
So he was obviously not like that. His main thing was he could get any woman, and that's why
100%,
he was super successful.
There are exceptions. I think serial killers maybe and a genuine psychopath are a different breed. They're I think that they do have like a weird like they're egomaniacs usually, and they're driven by something else. That's not out of anger. They're kind of just doing it too.
At the risk of going completely the other way compared to where we were trying to go with this podcast, do you feel like people like that, like real like serial killers, people like that, do you think they're like that because of trauma, environment, or do you think they're just born like that?
It's a really hard question to answer as psychologists that we are. No, it's a good question. I'm sure there is a lot of data on it, but I tend to have the belief that people are not always generally born a certain way. I generally think in the nature versus nurture argument, there's certainly things you can inherit. It's like, for instance, if somebody's adopted, right? To what extent do they exhibit characteristics of their biological parents if they've never been around them? Like that, I'm sure there is an element of that. But I tend to think that people are... like, I've seen a documentary where things that happen when a child is... in the womb and stuff like that, things that happen to the mother, the degree of stress she's under, trauma that happens in that can like influence whether or not the child's going to be predisposed to addiction and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I do tend to think that it seems like a lot of the little things that happen very young in infancy or when you're in the womb or whatever can influence what you become, or certainly would influence what you become. But it's hard to know where that serial killer instinct is. That's like a part of the brain that I could be butchering it, but I think it's like a part of the brain that regulates like empathy and care for other people that just doesn't work. Yep. And therefore they're just purely egomaniacs who don't like have any concept for any other people and get off on like killing people, for instance. I think I was watching a podcast the other day. It was interesting. This psychologist was distinguishing like serial killers from people who kill because they're mentally unwell. And she said that people who are serial killers and psychopaths are not mentally ill. She distinguished the two. So
really?
So someone who's like mentally ill or who has some sort of condition is someone who maybe kills someone because they're in a psychotic state, or they'll think reality is different to what it is, or they'll have like a burst of rage, versus someone who's like a psychopath who will like be calculated and cold and seek to kill people and be very intentional with it. She distinguished that as being not a like mental illness, and I think that would be problematic if you could, because then you could plead it as a defense in law. Like, what if you were a serial killer that was a psychopath and be like, oh, I'm mentally unwell, so therefore you get a reduced sentence? That'd be kind of creepy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be bad. I think it's also interesting when there's people that exhibit those traits, but they found something positive that they were able to use those traits for. And my example to this is like Kobe Bryant. If you've like followed sort of Kobe Bryant's life and like the way he has a lot of like psychopathic tendencies.
Really?
Very much so.
I don't know.
He just fell into basketball, and so like all of his obsession was into basketball, and like I personally think that he would have been one of those people, because like that's why he excelled so much at basketball. And when you break it down, he's like not the tallest, he's not the most athletic. Like if you got like the top 5 best players of all time, Kobe Bryant would perform the worst out of all of them if you did like a athletic screening, or like you put them through like a draft camp where like you tested how fast they can run, how high they can jump.
Gotcha.
Kobe Bryant's very average at all that kind of stuff. Like he doesn't have a very high jump. He doesn't have the biggest hands, doesn't have the longest arms.
Would you say the same about Gary Ablett Jr.? Because I don't think Gary Ablett Jr. would test that well athletically either. What do you reckon?
I don't know.
So I don't want to take away from your point.
That's a good point. I actually don't know. Gary Ablett. I mean, obviously it's hard to say, because like we're talking about people that in the grand scheme of things are in the top 1% of athleticism. But when you're talking about the elite of the elite and where they rank between that, probably. I mean, he's 6 foot, Gary Ablett Jr.
Less, I think. About 5'11".
Not known for being... I mean, he's quick.
He's quick without being extremely quick. I think his is more... He's so football smart and he's still skillful, can do everything. But sorry, continue.
And that's that was Kobe Bryant. So like he was just super skillful. Just worked on everything. Like used to practice intensely for hours. Yeah. Used to, after games, would go practice. Before games, he'd be there like a couple hours before. There's this story where I can't remember who the other player was, but he reckons that he went to he was playing the Lakers and he was playing Kobe Bryant, and he went to the court or the basketball stadium, whatever it is, to warm up before the game. So this is like maybe 2-3 hours before, and he saw Kobe Bryant there, and like he was like, oh, I'm just gonna get a few shots up and like whatever. And then and so he was at one end and Kobe Bryant was at the other end, and it quickly became this weird like mental duel of like they both didn't want to be the first person to walk off the court. So like, and he reckons he was like sort of shooting, and he sort of looked over and Kobe's there, and like he's shooting, and then like he's like, okay, whatever, and looks over again, and Kobe Bryant's doing a bit more like intense workout now, and he's like, oh fuck that, I'll do that as well.
Wow. And
like reckons he was like telling this story of like how it just kept leveling up.
That's cool.
And so eventually he said like, all right, I'm done. Like I'm literally exhausted, and I got a game in like 3 hours. Like I need to relax. So like he left, and then he talked to Kobe Bryant after the game. So the game happened. They both played really well. Talked to Kobe after the game. He was like, Kobe, man, like how do you do it? Like why do you work out like that so hard before games? And he's like, I don't. He's like, what do you mean? What was before? And he's like, I was here, and I saw you rock up, and I saw what you were doing, and so I just did it.
He was copying him.
Yeah, he's like, I've never done that before in my life. And he's like, I just saw you there, and I just wanted to beat you. Like, this obsessive, like, literally pretty much stalked a man, saw him go into the same room and beat him there, and then the whole time was like watching him and seeing everything he was doing, trying to do it better. Like, there's so many like funny stories of him like doing things like that, like where he has like a real obsessive personality, but he just obsessed over basketball and got really like. And I mean, his whole brand is called Mamba. That's why it's called Kobe Bryant Mamba. Mamba mentality, being called like the Black Mamba, which is like the most lethal snake and the most like cold-blooded snake in the world. And he's just known for being like really stone cold, like really heartless when it comes to like basketball. Yeah,
although he did seem to compartmentalize it right, where he had it was like a
right. I'm not. Yeah, he's obviously not a complete fucking psychopath.
No, I understand what you're saying.
But I just find it interesting. Like, there's a lot of traits that you can pull from the two and be like, he's a bit obsessed with it. Like it's a.
Was it you that told me? And I don't want to say this in case it's not true, but is it true that Lionel Messi's Aspergers? Did you tell me that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So who told me that? I can't remember who told me that, but someone told me that. And yeah, apparently.
So I'm not mistaken. Aspergers is a form of autism. I think. I'm sure it is.
I don't know if it's a form, because I think they're two different things, but they're closely related.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Again, I do need to say that it's a condition on the autism spectrum. There you go.
Okay, yeah.
With generally high functioning. Again, we're really not experts here. We're just a couple of handsome straight guys just talking shit.
Because you said that, it sounds like we're gay now.
No. So, but yeah, I think the overlap with like autism and like maybe sociopathic tendencies is, I think people with autism are not good at like social cues and therefore empathy as well. And I think with Asperger's as well, they equally have a tendency to get obsessed with a topic, or be a topic like a sport or anything like that. And
I grew up with one guy in Gelton who had it.
Really?
He wasn't very high functioning though, to be fair.
Yeah.
Definitely not like Lionel Messi.
Struggled
with school and all that stuff, and so definitely socially. But he could remember everybody's birthdays.
That's sick.
Everyone's.
Yeah.
If you've met him, the first thing he says is like, "Oh, hello, what's your name?" And then you tell him his name and says, "When's your birthday?" And then that's it. He'll remember it forever.
That's wild.
And he'll come up to you and be like, because my mum worked at the special needs school.
Yeah.
And so he would often come up to me and be like, "Oh, Dylan, your mum's birthday's in 3 days." And I'm like, "Yeah." Wow. And he's like, "Say her birthday for me." Like, "We'll do." And he goes, and then he'll always say, sorry, I butchered that. What I actually wanted to say was, he would come up to you randomly and he'd be like, "Hey, Dylan, 40th of April." And I'd be like, "Yeah, hey, Jordan, how you?" And he's like, "Good, your mum's birthday's in 3 days." "Yeah."
Wow.
And he would just go, "Bye." And like just walk off. So but like just off the dome, like without hesitating, he'll just say your name when's your birthday. But then my mum was telling me the story, which is super interesting. So he knows your birthday, so day, month, year.
Yeah.
So mum was dealing with him one day, and I was talking about birthdays. He always talks about birthdays. And I think her birthday was in a couple of weeks, and so he was talking about that. And my mum goes, "Okay, so do you know what the date today is, Jordan?" And he like said the date, and goes, "And when's my birthday?" And he said, "My mum's birthday." And then she goes, "Okay, so how old does that make me?" And couldn't do it.
Wow.
Could not do it. Like, was lost, and he was just like not interested. Like, just walked away. I was like, "No, I don't."
Yeah.
So incredible with dates, but can't distinguish, like,
can't do the math.
Yeah, of like when's what the difference is, I suppose.
Interesting. I actually find autism very fascinating, and I do know very little about it. It seems like there's a lot of different types of autism. I'm probably sounding like really ignorant here, but it just seems like obviously there's a lot of different ways in which people have it and their skill sets and stuff. I did actually read a really good book once. It's called The Dog in the Nighttime. That's part of the title. It's got a long title, and it's literally, I think it's by a guy called Mark Haddon. And it's literally from the perspective of someone with Aspergers or autism. I can't remember I think they say Aspergers in the thing. And basically break down his thought patterns and how it's extremely logical, being like, okay, this person is saying this. He couldn't tell like what their facial expression meant or anything like that. But he would be like, go back to his internal database and compare it to another time someone said something similar and apply that meaning to it. And that's a really fascinating book. But yeah, like, I think it's cool with, I guess, like, I think it seems like Messi, if it's true, assuming it is, has channeled like the perfect way to apply his skill set with it, where it's not usually something associated with sport though, is it?
No, but they definitely have that one thing that they sort of just love and generally get really good at. Yeah,
that's it. It's another thing is like people at the top of their game, a lot of people who are amateurs or whatever don't realise that the people like that work insanely hard.
Yep.
Like, a lot of people just think, oh, he's a talented sort of guy who, if he tried harder, he would be, the top of his game. But like, a lot of these guys are putting in more effort and more application than anyone has really put to anything in their life, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's crazy. Like, even someone like a Dustin Martin, who seems like a laconic guy because he just looks so classy and at ease all the time, he'd be one of the hardest workers in the league, for sure, on top of his talent.
Yep. Yeah. And on top of that, they're also searching for that thing that can give them like an extra of like 1%, 2%.
Yeah.
Because when you're that good, an extra 1-2% takes you from being like an average player to a Dustin Martin and like things like that. A big one I always turn to is Ronaldo.
Oh, yeah.
He like people, I mean, it's well documented. His work ethic is like absolutely insane. Trains constantly, like... It's, another one is boxers. Boxers are incredibly conditioned.
Yeah,
like insanely conditioned. And I've always like loved how they work.
Yeah, I think Ronaldo's a good example of that. People look at him and think he's like a chiseled man who's probably just had everything in his life go right for him. But you're right, he probably works harder than anyone. Like, Messi is probably the talented one out of the two, and Ronaldo is just like a physical beast. He's another one who, like, he was really ugly when he was like 19. Have you seen pictures of him? His teeth were all fucked.
Yeah.
Now he's like probably one of the most, if not the most handsome men in the world.
Money will do that to you.
I know, yeah. He's obviously a bit of an egomaniac, but like in a way that he channels that to make him the best. Some people have an ego and they don't put the effort in.
Yeah.
He like has the combo.
I feel like anyone in those top positions is though.
Yeah.
Isn't like, you have to be. There's no way that you can be the actual best in the world if you don't, within yourself, know and believe that you are the actual best in the world.
Matthew Prutis, Brownlow medalist 2014. There are exceptions to it. No, but it would be very interesting to get in the head of someone like a Matthew Prutis versus like a Dusty or a Fife. So with Dusty, Fife, Danger, you can think all of these guys are real alpha male types. You can picture them being like, no, I'm the best. I'm going to be the best on the field today. Matthew Prutis is one example. Like, I don't know, I'm sure there's other examples, but I'm an Eagles fan. Who, like, he just seems like such a humble, down-to-earth guy. You'd almost think he doesn't rate himself, but he puts in the same amount of work. And, like, yeah, it'd be interesting to see the psychology of a guy like that versus, like, a more of an egotistical guy like a Dusty or a Danger.
I find that Australia's a weird one, and, like, in particular, talking about Australian professional athletes, where Australian culture really hates arrogant people. So much so that you'll never hear Fife come out and say like, I'm the best player in the world at the game of AFL football.
For sure.
But then often like you'll hear like LeBron James will openly say that he thinks he's the best player in the world. He thinks he's the best player of all time. And the two, if Fife did say it, the difference in like the perception and acceptance from like the community that watches the said sport would be completely different. So people are completely fine with LeBron James saying like, I'm the best basketball that's ever lived, and people are like, yeah, I think he's probably true.
Yeah.
If Fife come out and said like, I am the best AFL footballer and I'll go down as a top 5 player of all time, people will be like, oh my God, what an arrogant dick.
So true.
So I find like AFL players to be generally very modest and more less egotistical than other sports.
You're right. It is an Australian thing. It's like the tall poppy syndrome.
Right.
Whoever's at the top, you want to knock off. Like
Yes.
That's it. And Australians love an underdog and all that shit. So, but we're also so media trained, like the players. So like in an interview, it's so. I mean, every major league like NBA, it's all corporatized. If that's the word, corporatized. Yeah.
I definitely feel that NBA is like less scripted.
Yeah.
Players say some more outrageous stuff than in AFL. AFL is just very, very like scripted. You can
100%.
Before they ask a question, I can tell you exactly what they're about to say.
Yeah.
The words might change minorly, but like the sentiment of what he's saying, you can pretty much get you can bang on and get exactly what they're saying.
100%. The players are under so much pressure, and they're so media trained that when they come off the field and they're interviewed at the end of the game, I don't even want to listen to it because I'm like, they're a quality opposition. They could be playing the bottom.
Credit to the boys.
Credit to the boys. We knew they were going to come out hard, but
they're a good team, and we knew that.
Yeah, exactly. And just like fuck, but they just want the interview done because they know that if they slip up or anything, they're in shit.
Yep.
And then like with coaches' interviews at the end, I do like listening to Simpson because I think he's a really smart guy. So I do watch a lot of his press conferences. But at the end of the day, the coaches don't respect the media and they just want to get like through that interview with saying as little as possible.
Yeah.
It doesn't make for a great spectacle. But
No, it's a massive burden for them.
I do think I reckon over time though, because people in Australia love Conor McGregor. I do think over time, if the players made a concerted effort to just, be more like, I'm the best, I do think that the community will embrace them.
Yeah.
But I think the league, and the clubs at that level, they'd be like, rate it in, mate. Just don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like a brand to think about.
It's kind of situational as well. Team sport versus like a guy who literally knocks guys out. So like if a guy in a massive team, football, like obviously there's 22 guys on a team, even more on a list. If he came out and said I'm the best player, they'd be like, hang on mate, like you couldn't do shit without the other 21 guys. But Conor McGregor come out and be like I'm the best, and then he goes into a cage by himself, doing something that none of us would ever consider doing, and knocks people out, and it's just like, true, good call.
And it's actually that's a really good point because these guys. Boxers, fighters, they want to be in the head of the other guy.
True. Yeah, exactly.
So there's no point them being reserved in the interview. And at the end of the day, they're representing themselves. Like the worst thing they say is their agent's going to be like, "No, don't say that." But like at the end of the day, they're the team, they're the entity. But with football, or like with boxing, you want to make the other guy think you actually think you're going to beat him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's no benefit to being humble. Whereas with football, I wonder if like say you're a 5, if you say I'm going to go out there and destroy the opposition. Does that not kind of just invite the other team to be like, we're going to fucking lock him down?
Yeah.
And then you're just not going to get a touch.
Yeah.
You got 4 guys trying to drag you because they think you're a dickhead.
And then everywhere you run, guys are like smacking into you and like...
Yeah, there's no benefit to having that mental edge in... I mean, obviously there's a benefit to having a mental edge in footy, but not in the way that like you psych them out pre-game. It's not like a fight. So you're right, that is very different. Like, NBA is interesting though, like where LeBron's just so confident. It seems like humility and... like being humble in the media is not valued in America.
Yeah, it's 2 different cultures.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very true. They're like I don't know. I think they just love someone that's like good, knows they're good, and can come out and say it.
As a fan, what do you prefer? Would you prefer the AFL be a bit more like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I wish they, but. I wish they were more like that. I wish players would come out. I wish like Dustin would come out and say, like, look, I think I'm the best player. Like I think if on my day when I feel good, I don't think there's anyone that can outplay me.
Yeah.
But again, it's just like I know Australian culture, and I just know that people like, example, like our dads, they would probably hate every second of that if he really did say that.
Yeah. That's true.
So yeah, it's really different, and also given Dusty. At times, can seem like the only player on the field. Like the grand final, it was like the third quarter ever, and he was just everywhere, and it was just like, oh my god. But compared to basketball, one player can really change the whole team.
Yeah.
I question whether if Dusty was out for a game, would Richmond just be the worst team in the world?
Probably
Whereas a LeBron James team can go from terrible to like straight out contenders, and then the moment that he leaves, they're back to terrible.
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah.
So he influences teams and the game that much more.
And relies on his teammates a bit more too.
True. So I think that's where the difference lies, is like a Richmond without Dusty is way better off than like the Miami Heat when LeBron James just left, or the Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron James just left.
Yeah.
So you can say straight away, like, yeah, LeBron is the best, and that's why that team has just turned absolute trash.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So the pursuit of happiness.
We have not talked about anything that we wanted to this podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to have to title this video something different now. I was going to call it the pursuit of happiness, but no. No, it is interesting chat. I wonder, but it actually, just to tie that all back in, I wonder how happy these guys are.
I don't think people would understand the amount of pressure that they're under. Like, you look at it and it seems very glamorous from afar, given everything does. But they're some of the most heavily scrutinised people in the world. I reckon the only other people that would be more scrutinised are like politicians, actors maybe. But on a day-to-day basis, everyone's watching, everyone's scrutinising. And
they're treated as though they've got this massive social responsibility, so if they do
it's weird,
do anything outside the mark in their personal life, it's just amplified and blown up. But interestingly, like, I don't know if I've said this on the pod before, but I was listening to Dylan Buckley on Dylan Friends and listening to him talk with Dan Gonge. They literally have a podcast called List Cloggers, because that's what they were in their time. They were like fringe players in the AFL. And it was interesting to hear them talk about the anxieties of being a fringe player. You never think about it. You just, as a fan, you never really think about what the week-to-week is like for a football player. You might just think, oh, that's cool. They're just going to training, go out on the weekend after the game and smash some chicks. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of lifestyle is what you picture.
Yeah.
But you don't think about the anxiety of, like, shit, how am I going to get picked this week? If I stuff up on the field, am I going to get roasted? Like, it sounded like it was very... not traumatic, but just very difficult for him. Like, Dill Buckley almost sounded like he was relieved to be away from it. You know what I mean? I don't know, I might be putting words in his mouth, but it's just the way they talk about it. So I'd imagine, like, someone who gets drafted. I think maybe we were talking about it that night. We had a few beers and we were not on the podcast. But you were saying, because you obviously moved to Perth originally to try and get drafted when you were about 18, right? Or when you were 18.
17.
And you were looking back on it and you were like, I don't wish I'd been drafted, because I might have been a fringe player at, say, Essendon for 10 years and would have been in and out of the team.
Oh, not even 10 years. I reckon I got like a couple of years into it.
Fair enough. Yeah, no. That was me that said 10 years. But like 5 years, whatever, less. The anxiety around that versus like where you are now, you feel a lot more happy that you'd never been drafted to some extent. But you'd say you're happier that you didn't pursue that life now.
Yeah. Not getting drafted is the best thing that ever happened to me, because there was being drafted was a possibility at one stage. So when I was 17, like I was about to turn 18, it was like a real thing. My dad sort of sat me down and said, like, look, like, you've kind of been working at this for a long time, talked about it since you were a kid. This is actually a chance. Like, you're a chance at this. Like, commit yourself to it. And I was like, cool, okay, no worries. And things happened and I didn't. But then, like, definitely looking back, I wouldn't have been a star. Like, I would have literally been a list clogger. I would have been maybe in and out. If I stuck around for a couple of years, I reckon I would have been lucky. And I just see, like, dealing with that, and like that anxiety of like, where am I playing this week? Am I getting picked? Am I not getting picked? Am I getting a contract next year? All this kind of stuff going through, and then on the top of that, spending this like influential portion of your life where you can really make or break how you live the rest of your life, spending it so focused on this one thing where at the end of the day you're not going to have a career past 30 anyway, pushing back those years where you should be spending going to uni, educating yourself, doing courses, training, all that kind of stuff. I think for me, I was way happier that I did a trade, went to uni, because now I sit here as a 26-year-old and I feel like hadn't I gone the other way, I don't think I would have been as well set up to have a good work life going into like 40, 50 years old. Yeah. And I way rather this. Way rather this.
You know what I'd say is someone who's taking a bit of a leap here, because I don't have any personal experience for him. It's just observations around that sort of thing. But I do think you would probably be a lot more emotionally mature now than if you'd been a footballer, and the reason is I actually think footy boy culture is a bit
toxic,
heinous, toxic, ridiculous.
It's terrible. Yeah, it's horrible.
For instance, like I've just observed, on nights out, what footy boys are like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, gee whiz.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Versus you had probably some better influences in your life through that uni period where you made friends with some sick people. No, I'm not talking about myself, but I'm just talking about generally the people you surrounded yourself versus, some of the boys you could have rubbed shoulders with, say, if you played AFL. I think it's a real thing where AFL players say they do their 5 to 6 years in the system and then get spat out, don't really know what to do with their lives. And
then there's this now what moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had my now what moment 18, 19.
Was that after footy or after video carpentry?
That was after my carpentry. I sort of had an idea of where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But I had my now what moment, but it was very quick for me to like find the path and be like, oh, like this is where I'm going, and make changes really young. So I didn't have like debt, like I wasn't like never mortgaged, didn't have this. My responsibilities and limitations were very small, so I was able to make those changes and go from working full time to go to uni and then work through that. But coming out like of the system as a 26, 30-year-old even, and being like, now what? Like for example, a lot of those like really successful guys like Andrew Embley, Daniel Kerr, like those guys, you don't hear from that much, but I'm pretty sure Daniel Kerr works for like a recruitment agency where he like recruits like apprentices.
Right.
And you just look at it and just like, they had such glory for 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's like...
Daniel Kerr was a genuine champion.
So they had such this glory and like all this gratification coming from people, the community, people around and whatever. But like you're on this earth for 90 years, let's say, men generally about 90 years. And just to sort of put 80 years at jeopardy because you want to have this like 10-year span, to me on the big picture just seems a bit silly.
It seems like that playing group, particularly West Coast, is like a cautionary tale for the rest of the country about what happens to people in that age when they don't figure out what they're going to do. I think Embley turned out right. He's doing a bit of media for the Eagles these days, but I think Chad Fletcher, who was a good player in a premiership team, like he was picked every week. He was good enough to play in that midfield every week. I think he ended up like on the registers at Coles like 5 years after.
Daniel Chick works up north at a mine.
Exactly right. So
doing FIFO life.
It's a massive cautionary tale to like the rest of the league, and there's a lot of education. There would have been a lack of education back then.
So they're better now. We'll give that.
100%. Yeah. I'm not even just talking about like doing meth like that Eagles group did. I'm not really talking about drugs as such. It's just that party boy mentality. Like, I don't know if you buy into the word toxic masculinity, but I do think there is a little bit of that in my observations of what footy boys are like. People who are my age, I feel like are less developed than me, and I'm not even saying I'm necessarily that developed for a 27-year-old.
Right. You're talking emotionally?
Yeah, just meant like maturity.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I feel like, not to sound arrogant, I'm not even talking about myself. I just like the boys who in that culture, like I think you were much better off for not having been part of that for 5 years, whatever it was. Yeah.
I think the issue is, and why it might be that they seem more immature than say you or I, is because they're caught in the bubble for a longer period of time.
It's an insular kind of lifestyle.
Right. So it's similar to like school, where the school is your whole life, and like outside perspectives doesn't, like, you don't really notice them. They're not really there. You're just like sort of involved in this little bubble. And I think that bubble sort of follows them. So they get into football culture, and that they're never really like amalgamated into regular society until way later down the line.
100%, yeah.
They're still living this like sort of bubble mentality where like you and I, we were spat out into the world young. Like we had to deal with real life. And so I think they come out of the bubble, they come out of this football career, and then they realise like, oh shit, life kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the best.
Yeah. They're put on a pedestal, I guess,
for
especially
sure.
if you're half decent.
Yeah, for sure.
My point isn't to make it sound like, oh, I'm better than football players.
No.
It's just an observation. I think, like you said, that insular lifestyle, being put on a pedestal, going out and being adored, probably has some negating effects on like your development emotionally.
And it comes to an end, and that's the problem with football. It comes to an end way too soon.
Yeah.
Like if just like if you take away like sort of the fame and the all those cool benefits that you get, like girls loving you, being adored by fans, all that kind of stuff. If you just like put it down on paper and say like, hey, you can have this career where like you earn $100,000 a year from the ages of 20 to 30. By 30, you're sacked. Or you can have this life where like you're gonna be poor, maybe up until late 20s. But then from there, you're like, it's better and better. From there, like your money grows. From there, like, and your career span is from that till you'll be easily employed until 60. Like, sure. What would you pick? You'd always pick the longevity. You'd be like, well, I don't want to get fired at 30. Like, I want this.
You're right, but again, the caveat to that is like, the chance to play AFL and fulfill your dream is also once in a lifetime, and that elevates you into a top 1% of people just to say, hey, I fucking played AFL.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a few champion players who were considering not going for the draft and then ended up maybe winning a flag or something like that. So,
and there's guys obviously that do really well and they transition out of football really well. It's not like a guarantee that they're going to come out and just fucking bomb out and be a hate life and just go to the bottom of the social sort of standings. A lot of guys do transition really well, but unfortunately for those list cloggers and people like that, I think I think it's definitely rough for them.
The AFL, I think, knows that though. Like, I think they're making moves to improve education. Like, a lot of players these days will do uni while they play. And
I think they have to these days.
Yeah, they have to do something. They certainly have to do community service hours and stuff like that. So,
and I think the clubs these days literally make them do some form of study. They don't let them do nothing. Which is great. So it's sort of like pushing them in that direction. And I mean, if the players are smart, they'll do something that relates to football, so that when they transition out, that's actually my like biggest sort of lesson in life is, I feel like I sort of made decisions early on as far as career goes, like i.e. leaving school early to go do a carpentry apprenticeship, all that kind of stuff. And every decision I've made since then, I've always made sure that whatever I choose, whatever new skill I work on, whatever new string I can add to my bow, for lack of a better phrase, is accumulating over my previous ones.
Okay.
So once I picked carpentry, I was like, right, from now on, for the rest of my life, I'm always going to work in property or construction.
Okay. I see what you mean.
I would like, what's the point of doing like 4 years as a carpenter and then going out and going to uni and being like, I'm going to do sports science.
Yeah.
You do that for 4 years and then like, I want a complete change again. I'm going to go do this. Like, sure, it sucks, and at times you'd be like, man, another life would have been cool, another career would have been cool. But I just believe in like whatever decisions you make as far as like career-wise goes and training and all that kind of stuff, I make sure that my decisions accumulate and are able to be stacked on to my previous ones.
Imagine being super dumb and doing like a law degree and then pursuing a career in media. That's me.
But they go hand in hand. Law is one of those great degrees where people are employed in fields outside of law that studied law, and they do extremely well.
I'm just being silly.
Yeah.
No, I'm confident in my path.
Yeah.
You're right, and I did it more as like something that I can fall back on.
Yeah.
Imagine doing law as a fallback.
You sound like a dick.
Yeah, the more I talk about it, the stupider it sounds. No, I did law and marketing, and I do have an interest in marketing, and to some extent, if I'm trying to build a brand, then marketing is going to be a huge part of that. And if I'm going to start a business properly, then my law degree
will be fantastic.
So, So shut up, guys.
I think if you were like starting a business, I would almost argue that if you come to me and said like, I want to start a business in 10 years, what should I study now? I think I would almost argue I'd say do law over do a business degree.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just feel like law gives you such a broad spectrum. So when you come out of law, you're guaranteed you're going to be able to articulate very well.
Yeah.
As we are now. Also, you're going to be able to articulate very well via like pen and paper. You have a very deep understanding of contracts.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing.
Contract law and then corporate law, which is talking about business structures. Those are probably the two most applicable things I studied at law, which would help me in that regard.
Whereas if you studied business, you do get like your first year, you do spend sort of circulating all the degrees, and you do like the intro units for everything. But then after that, you sort of like are very specialised, and you're not getting that broad spectrum that I think law gives you. Just because, like everything is built off the law. The law is like the Bible of society. So it's like if you can understand that and understand those sort of rules and I feel like it's probably the best way to do things.
Yeah, that was kind of my thinking when I did it. I was one of those people that didn't realise what I wanted to do with my life until 23, which is okay.
Is that when you started the pod?
Yeah, when I started True Footy. In fact, I would say even it was probably like 6 to 12 months after that when I realised that's what I wanted to do.
How serious was True Footy when you first started?
It was not that serious, but for me, I quickly internally believed like I was going to see where it, like give it a real good crack and see where it turned up. And I don't think the other boys necessarily, which is fine, obviously, had the same deep-seated desire. And I didn't talk about it openly until maybe 2019.
Yeah.
Where it became more of a realistic goal. But
and now you're a famous YouTuber.
Not famous. At the moment, my channel's in a fucking grave. At the moment, this is mid-January. I just released a video. I don't know how it's going, but I released a cricket video 2 days ago that stunk it up.
Did it?
Flopped harder than Daniel Busher on a Saturday night.
No one knows Daniel Busher, so they hear all these jokes and they think like, this Daniel Busher guy.
Like, because he's on True Footy. So
of course.
True Footy, no, they know Daniel. Daniel. Where were we? Talking about I'm nowhere near famous yet, obviously, but I've changed my mindset now. I'm giving it 100% of a crack, and that's cool. And that actually ties back into happiness. I think a lot of my I think I've always been the sort of person who didn't want to do a career which was going to make me a lot of money necessarily, because every time people would talk about careers and making a lot of money when I was younger, my eyes would glaze over and be like, yeah, great. Now let's talk about the Eagles. And now I've kind of been able to combine the two, I feel. So like, I'm a lot happier because I can potentially make a career out of talking about football. Like that's one of my value sets, is doing something I'm really happy with.
Yeah.
And I feel content. And I'm feeling good at the moment. I'm feeling physically strong, feeling mentally strong, probably stronger than I ever have in a long time, to be honest.
Nice.
Feeling good these days. I've had a little switch, but I know my personality's like, I'm like, I'm a fat loser. No one will ever want me next week. True Footy's dead. I've been reading books on mindset lately, and
I'm a fat loser and no one will love me.
I'm a fat loser with body odor.
People in bands are cool. I'm not cool.
School of rock.
Nice.
I'm feeling good these days. I feel like I finally started to let things go. And
the beautiful thing about that is you can see it in someone. You can see when someone is like really happy and when they're not. I don't know if they carry themselves in a different way. I don't know if it's just like their persona, their like attitude. Yeah, but you can definitely see it.
Yeah,
you can definitely see when someone's doing well, feeling well, which you love to see.
Yeah, it is real.
I love that for you.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. It's good. I think it's really good to like just be on top of your own mind. So I've been reading reading a book around like it's called The Courage to Be Disliked, and it's about how you're just more in control of your thought process than you realize, and there's no such thing as mental trauma. It's all about the value that you attribute to it and stuff like that. Not that I've been through anything dramatic like lately. It's not like bad, but it's just changed my way of thinking a little bit. And, just feeling a lot more comfortable these days. So hopefully that translates in a really good year on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because last year I didn't feel that good, and I don't think my performance was that good for that period.
But I remember you reflected like end of the year, and you were like, you know what? Actually, I did really well on YouTube this year. My your goals were very like quantifiable, so they were all numbers driven.
Yeah.
But when you look at like the quality of what you're putting out, like in terms of that, I think 2020 was a big year for you to like. You switched in. You now have more personality in your videos.
Yeah.
They're definitely better quality. So like the subs didn't get to 10K, which I think that's what you were aiming for.
No, it got to 10K, but I was boldly hoping for 20.
20. So you didn't get that.
Yeah.
But I still think you're at the weird stage in the career. And this is coming from someone that knows nothing about YouTube. Like, I literally just make this podcast and talk some shit. I don't really follow it much. But I still think you're at the stage where the numbers aren't accurately, I guess, demonstrating what you're actually putting out.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's good. I think part of just being mentally strong as well, which is something I'm working on, is just like seeing past that and just, even though like say it's middle of January and my views are flopping, like just being like, nah, they'll come.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just having that resilience. That's something I'm into at the moment. But
it's probably the hardest thing about being like a particular sport YouTuber is obviously things will bang when that sport is hot. Like when like finals obviously goes off for you. Yeah. The grand final stream obviously goes off for you. But those like later months where like the players are literally just starting preseason, and you're coming in and being like trying to make a video about God knows what, like the top 10 shoes in AFL, just like the most random shit. Like, what can you like? There's got to be moments where you just think to yourself, what can I talk about? Like, there is just...
So I feel like there is actually a lot to talk about in that you can draw on past topics like great grand final.
Yeah, so that's cool.
That. But the thing is, the interest and the views die off in January, and that's hard when you got to put food on the table. So if I'm pursuing a career in
got figs to feed. I got fids to feed.
What did you mean to say?
I got kids to feed.
I got fids to keep. You are hungover.
Oh, that's a good one. No. Dyslexia.
I don't think you can blame it.
That's just straight out, just retarded.
Yeah. So that will be an obstacle I face if I want a career as a creative, is getting through the months where the money's going to dry up. But that's all. It's all fun problems.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that makes you happy.
Oh goodness! All right. Well, I've actually got to wrap this up because I have to go to a wild cousin's 40th birthday party.
Here we go. So you are going out tonight.
It's gonna be soda. No, it's like 1:20 in the afternoon. I'll be back by 7 o'clock. And I'll probably edit this. So.
Dope. Well, we did not do what we wanted to do today.
No, we just kept like going away from it, and then we're dragging it back to that topic.
Happiness. But as always, I mean that was cool. I enjoyed those conversations. Yeah. Hopefully, people that watched enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But if you've stuck around up until now, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And yeah, we're going to start trying to upload a bit more consistently.
Yeah.
So stick around.
Because I don't have AFL videos to make.
Oh no.
Got a lot more time. Yeah. Cool.
But enjoyed it. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for watching. Peace. Have a good one.
Proud of you.
Bye.